Okay, welcome to another episode of Soccer Talk. We're so excited to be here. We're hoping to be more consistent now that we're back at work, we're done with our vacations, and the EPL is in full swing. So let's get right to it. First off, we are going to review the Arsenal versus the West Ham game. So what do you think, Coach?
Well, you know, it was a tough game coming from two losses for us, especially because we played two of the top teams in the EPL.
Yeah.
So, you know, new coach, third game. This was something where, you know, you had to prove something. I mean, you had to show that you're doing something because, you know, you're playing a team that right now is in the last place. They don't have any points yet. And to lose to them would have been horrible for us, you know. So at least now we're seeing what Emery is going to show for us. You know, he tried different things. He's trying different lineups. The players that he started with, you know, once he realized that they weren't working as well, he did the changes. One of the things that I liked was that he took chances from the beginning on the second half. You know, he brought in his first sub at the beginning of the second half. So that tells you, okay, you know, I'm going to try something new because whatever we have is not working.
So he's willing to take risks
Exactly.
and make decisions to actually try to change the face of the game instead of sitting back.
Exactly. And West Ham, they came out. You know, they came out to play. You know, we were just talking about how the EPL is one of those leagues where everything's even. Just because you're at the bottom doesn't mean you're going to stay at the bottom.
Right.
So West Ham came out with its guns up. You know, they weren't going to give up, and even though they were a visiting team, they scored the first goal. You know, so West Ham came out running. They came out, you know, attacking us from every which way they could. They had a lot of shots from the outside. They made Czech worked a lot harder. So this was not an easy game. Even though if you look at the score, it looks like, oh, you know, we had an easy game. Well, if you saw the game, you saw that it wasn't an easy game. You know, they scored first, which was tough. You know, we had to come back. Even the announcers are saying, oh no, here comes Arsenal. They lost, you know, two top games, and now they're playing West Ham. And from the beginning, they're at home and they're already down a goal. Well, guess what? The team doesn't want that. So right away they came back, and it only took us 5 minutes to get back into it. You know, it was the defender Nacho Monreal who scored the goal. But it's great to see that, you know, if the offense is not working, the people from the back are coming from the back and trying to do something, make changes. So I saw a lot of our defense coming up from the outside, trying to get into, you know, the scoring position, and then just try to do something, which it's what ended up happening with Nacho scoring that first goal tying the game before the game ended. So that was pretty good. That started at, you know, that goal came in at the 30th minute, which was 5 minutes from, you know, the first goal that they got. So at least at halftime we were at 1-1. So now Emery was able to see what changes he needed to do. Now, one thing that surprised me was the fact of the player who wasn't there.
Yeah, why wasn't Ozil? And he wasn't even on the.
He wasn't even on the bench.
So,
and a lot of people were asking themselves, how come he's not there? Why isn't he there? You know, you're talking about the player that probably one of the best players right now on the team, who also committed at staying with Arsenal because he knew.
Who did they have in his?
So in his position, we had Shaka and Wendowski, and they were doing okay, but you know, the changes once Torreira came in, you saw the difference right away. You know, our midfielders started attacking more. Having those fresh legs helped us a lot, and I guess Torreira being so young, he was able to have that energy and probably pass it to the rest of the team, because I noticed that a lot of the players who were not running as much maybe started pushing up and started, you know, getting to the other side of the field, and that's how we got more goals scored.
Do you think that Ozil, from the guys that started or came off the bench into the same position, do you think Ozil would have been a better bet to start, or?
I'm pretty sure he would have been.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if Emery was trying something different, and I don't know what happened, you know, in the back, you know, behind back doors. I don't blame Emery for trying something new because that's what people want to see. People want to see, it's a new coach. What is he bringing to the team, to the club? So I don't mind him trying different things. I like the fact that he brought in a sub right away at the second half, like I said before. So that's telling you, okay, this is a different style of coaching. He's taking chances. He's not afraid of taking risks. So doing that helped him, and he showed.
Do you think that the reason he rested Ozil was because he played against Man City and Chelsea,
Right.
who are two of the top teams now?
And that's one of the things I'm thinking that is, okay, this is West Ham. Maybe it's not going to be as tough, so maybe I could rest them and get them ready for the next game.
Yeah.
Even though our next game is not as tough, maybe a little bit more than West Ham, but Cardiff is only, they're 5 positions from the bottom also. So I think, I don't even know, he may have him on the bench, but he may not start again.
Yeah.
So we won't know until we see the lineup. But I am hoping that this is just, new things that he's trying, because I did miss him.
Right.
You could tell that he was missing from the game.
And as a Man U fan, you have two of our Man U players, or used to play for Man U,
Right.
Mkhitaryan and Welbeck, and they both played in that
They both
game.
played now.
How do you think they did?
Oh, but they did well. Welbeck didn't come in until the 75th minute.
Right.
But, he gave us that last goal too. And he gave us more fresh legs at the end. And so we were attacking throughout. The second half belonged to us.
Yeah.
Pretty much, West Ham was still trying to get back. But, with all the subs that we did, everybody was working. Lacazette was, he was on top of everything once he came in. So, to me, his subs were perfect. They did what they were supposed to do. And you can see it on his expressions, Emery, when he saw the goals being scored, he's going, okay, so now, they're listening to what I'm saying. So maybe they're starting to, take into what he's trying to do with Arsenal. So hopefully that's good news for us.
Were you able to notice the reaction from the fans?
Oh yeah, fans were excited, man. When those goals came in, you can tell the fans were going, all right, this is what we want. This is, yeah, it may not be Chelsea or Man City, but at least, we're getting some results because, we were, last year, we were in that place where you wouldn't know what we were going to do with a tough team or an easy team. It was all out the window. So it's like, now that we know, okay, this is a game that we should win, we must win it, we're at home, let's go out there and win it. And that's what they did. So I like what Emery's doing so far, so let's hope that he keeps it up, and let's hope that the club keeps it up too, and they, keep winning games.
So what is your prediction, or what do you think is going to happen in the next game? They play Cardiff City.
Well, Cardiff City, they only have 2 points, but at least that means they have 2 ties.
Right.
So I think they're one of those teams that they want to make sure that they move up into the boards, and they say, okay, we're playing Arsenal, so they're gonna be aggressive, just like West Ham was. West Ham did not back away any time, so they were out there all the time. So I think Cardiff is going to be doing the same thing. They're thinking, okay, this is a new team, new Arsenal with a new coach. Let's see what we can do, and they're not that far from us. We're in 9th place, but we still only have 3 points.
But you did play Man City and Chelsea the first 2 games.
Right. So what is that saying about us, though? We got to make sure that when we play those games against Chelsea and Man City again, that we're ready for those games.
Right.
We don't want to go home and say, okay, because we play the top teams, doesn't mean we're not going to win.
Right.
Arsenal is a club that, hey, we're the ones that we need to win against big teams, against Man U, against Man City, against Liverpool. We can't just, be comfortable winning games from the teams at the bottom. We want to make the champions. That's one of the things that we've always done, and I think that's something that the fans are missing right now. They want to go back to the Champions League again.
So what's your prediction for this weekend's game?
I'm thinking it's going to be a win, and I'm hoping. My prediction is going to be at least another 3-1, maybe a 3-0. It just depends on our defense, because that's something that I noticed on our defense. we were attacking a lot, but then we had a hard time getting back. And we had West Ham had some really fast legs on the front that, you know, when we were trying to get back, it took us a little while to get back, and that's where we got caught. So hopefully, you know, we'll fix that on this next game. You know, we didn't see El Neni play this game, so hopefully he'll come back on this next game.
Hopefully Ozil.
Right, and Ozil, I'm hoping that he'll be back.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't be too mad if he doesn't play the next game because it's Cardiff, and then maybe he wants to rest him for the game after that. We'll see. We don't know yet. But I wouldn't be too upset if he doesn't play this game because we were able to beat West Ham without him.
Right.
So it's okay for me. If he needs the rest, if he's hurt, then it's okay for me to, you know, if he wants to rest. But other than that, I think we're doing fine. I think our offense is doing what they're supposed to.
Well, and there is an international break coming up after this weekend's games.
Right.
And maybe Ozil's being called into the German game.
Exactly.
So that could be an opportunity if they don't play him
Right.
to, you know, even though they don't necessarily want to appease your international coaches and stuff,
Right.
that could be a reason. Maybe Ozil said, hey, I need some time to recover for,
Right.
you know, our international duty. I don't know.
And of course, because you know, Germany they didn't do well in
Right.
the World Cup. They want to do something with the Euro Cup.
Right, right.
So
Okay, so now we're gonna review our Man U versus Tottenham game, which was not fun at all for me and any of our Man U fans. We lost 3-0 at home, which is uncalled for. Should have never happened. I don't know what's going on, you know, behind the scenes. All I can see is what I see. And I'll tell you just a few things from the game. Herrera is not a right defender. Not that, you know, we preach to our boys that we coach that they should be able to play other positions. And I get it. But at the pro level, it's a little different. And he is, in no way, shape, or form, should be playing right defender. Even though he's great coming forward, since he's an offensive player, and he did pretty good when he came forward. I mean, do you agree with me, or?
of course, you know, and like you said, we always preach to our players they need to be able to play every position. But if you're a player, you're at the pro level, and he's not working, you shouldn't play it at a position that he's not going to work.
Yeah.
And if he can't see that by now, he's been there long enough to know, you know, what squad he needs to have. So.
Yeah. Another thing I saw was Matic, and I love the guy, but he's just too slow. And his job is to slow the game down,
Right.
which is great. But this we didn't need.
Right.
We needed it at faster pace. And so every time he was on the ball, you could see that he had Tottenham players on him right away.
Right.
To me, he was slowing the game down.
He's getting older, coach. So
He is, and he's just coming off an injury.
Yeah.
And so I understand that.
But he does great in the air. So
Yes.
there's certain things that you need him for.
Yes. And in my opinion, we should have never changed the center defenders from the previous game, Bailly and Lindelof, even though they played like crap. We shouldn't have, because the type of mentality that the professionals have these days isn't like you and I growing up. You know, they're not as tough as we are. If they're playing bad one game and then they get pulled, it ruins their faith.
Yeah.
You know, and I know Bailly had just an absolute horrible game.
Right.
But it's rare that he has such a bad game. And Mourinho bought both these players, Lindelof and Bailly. And so, yeah, they had a bad game against Brighton. But when you bring in Smalling and Jones, who hadn't played,
Right.
you know, you're like, no matter how good Smalling and Jones should be, it's still a big risk against such a strong team. And so I don't think he should have changed those two center defenders. Do you agree?
Right. And, you know, sometimes you got to think about this. You're playing different teams. So maybe if they had a bad game against that one team, doesn't mean they're going to have another bad game against another
Exactly.
team. Because it's a completely different team. You know, the attackers that are going to have to defend are completely different.
Right.
So give them that chance first.
Right.
you know.
Especially since he bought them.
Yeah.
And all he did all summer was say, we need another center back. We need another center back. Well, you bought 2 the year before.
Right.
You know, so that's ridiculous. So here's the positives from the game. There was a ton of energy.
Right.
The first half, man, it was 0-0 at the end of the first half. Man U created way more chances. They were pushing forward. They were on top of it. There was a ton of energy. The fans got behind them. Overall, for the game, Shaw was one of the most positive players, played an excellent game.
Right.
And if you've listened to our shows or you pay attention to what goes on with Man United, for a long time, he's kind of been the outskirts. Mourinho
Right.
hasn't liked him. And here he is playing great. And so he did at the end of the game. You saw Mourinho, if you watched it, he went up and talked to Shaw and told him what a positive game he has. And he mentioned that in his press game or post-game press conference.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we created way more chances than Tottenham.
Right.
And
I
had
saw
more
Lukaku
shots.
take so many shots. Yeah.
Yes.
And he just couldn't get him in. I
No,
mean,
I
so many
know.
shots. There's the one where he took on all the defenders and then the goalie.
Yes, and it
he
just
went
went
off
wide.
and he just went too wide
Yes.
for him. I really thought that was going to go in.
We all thought it was going
and,
in.
And of course, he wasn't his comfortable foot.
Right.
But still, he already beat the goalie, so everybody's thinking, okay, there's
It
the
should
first
go
goal.
in, yes.
It should go in.
And actually, Lingard had a beautiful shot too, right
Right.
after Tottenham got the
Yes.
first goal. Then he skies it over. You know, so again, it's
I know, when I
difficult.
saw that shot, I'm like, oh my God, did he really just take that shot? Because you couldn't believe from him
Yes.
to have a shot that bad, to look that bad.
And so there were some positives to the game,
Right.
but overall, we should never lose that bad against Tottenham at home. I mean, we shouldn't lose that bad against them away, no matter
Right.
how good they are. And it's an issue, and we'll get into that.
So now, of course, you have to get ready for your next game, which
Yes.
is against Burnley.
Yes, so now we play Burnley at Burnley, and Burnley, they're third from the bottom, okay? They have 2 losses and a tie, which, you know, we have 2 losses and a win, so it's not a
Right.
huge difference. But we're Man United, and we shouldn't be in the bottom half of the table. There's 20 teams in the EPL, and we're 13, okay? Now,
And remember, Coach, though, it's still only 3 games.
I know,
So
I know.
I understand you.
but it still shouldn't happen.
Yes, I know.
Okay, so here's what I think. First of all, obviously we should win. And second of all, here's my score prediction, 2-1.
Okay.
Because we struggle on defense, we struggle on offense. Who knows who Marino's going to play and what kind of formation he's going to do. Now, if he plays a 3-5-2, which is what he played with Tottenham, which again, if you remember, we had a lot of energy, they played it fairly well. This is the lineup I would go with. Bailly, Smalling, and Lindelof as your back 3 because Jones is injured.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I would go with those 3. And you have to show faith in your players. You can't pull them every time they make a mistake.
Right.
Okay? In the midfield.
And that's what I'm afraid. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm
That's okay.
afraid that he's going to do to Lukaku because he couldn't score. You know, I mean.
But he doesn't have anybody else. So I
Right.
don't know if he'll ever pull Lukaku.
Right. Unless he brings in Rashford.
Yeah. So in the midfield, I say we go with Fred, Shaw, Pogba, Martial, and Lingard.
And you know, Fred had a great game.
Yeah.
I
he's a good
just
player.
couldn't score, but Fred had an excellent game.
So if you look at those 5, now I know Martial, now I don't know if you heard this, but they offered Martial a 5-year contract.
Yeah.
And he's also been on the outs with Mourinho.
Right.
He's gotten worse since Mourinho came. Mourinho doesn't seem to like him, doesn't play him a whole lot. But he's a very talented young player and he has to play. How is he going to get better if he doesn't play? And if he doesn't play well in 1 game, you don't sit him for 2 games.
Right.
You got to keep playing with him and let him do what he can do. And so when you look at those 5, Fred, Shaw, Pogba, Martial, Lingard, you've got tons of energy from
Right.
all those players. You got Pogba, who's super strong. Martial's super strong. They can take on players anywhere on the pitch. You've got Fred with all that great control and ability to find people.
Right.
Shaw's great coming down. He's got a lot of power going forward. And then you got Lingard, who just runs forever.
Right.
And just chases everybody down and never gets tired. And is also very talented. And then up top, I say Rashford and Lukaku.
Which was my thinking.
Yeah.
Because if you can get both of those, it's like, what else can you do? You know, you got to have your top players in that game.
Right.
And just, you know.
And here's the thing, Martial and Rashford, to me, they're forwards.
Right.
Somehow they have to be playing on a forward line, not playing as a halfback, where they need to constantly be coming back. I mean, we preach to our forwards that they need to come back on defense.
Right.
But we don't want that to be their sole purpose.
Right.
And I think the reason why Rashford and Martial have not progressed under Mourinho is because that's what he's doing. He's putting them on the outside wings and just playing one up top, maybe one underneath, and it's not either one of them. And so they're having to go up and back and up and back, and it's not them. Yeah, and it's not their game. I mean, they're young, so they shouldn't get tired, but still, they're goal scorers.
Yeah, and you want to develop them as, you know, center mids, so, you know, they develop that chemistry between the team. Because if you do that, when, like you said, having them running up and down the field, there's no energy in the middle. So, and if you can't control that middle, you know, that's where they're going to kill you from, because they're going to attack you through the middle.
Right. And then on the bench, and this is who I think our bench should be: Mata, Matic, Valencia, Young, Piera. I'm not exactly sure that's how you pronounce it, and Sanchez. And the reason why Sanchez, and you being an Arsenal fan, and we got Sanchez from your team, he loses the ball so much. He is a workhorse, and I love that about him. And so maybe you could put him in place of Martial, you know, or Rashford, but he hasn't really played for us the way he played for you guys.
But, you know, the one thing that I always think about when you talk about Sanchez is his discipline. He has to improve, and that could be one of the reasons why he hasn't performed with you guys, because he's adapting to the new club, a new team, and he doesn't have the discipline to say, okay, I'm in a different team now. I need to play a different way, a different style. He's a workhorse, like you said, but he has to prove that on the field.
Right.
And if he's not doing what Mourinho wants him, he's not going to put him, you know, anywhere that he wants to. He has to make sure that he goes up. And if your choices are Rashford and Lukaku, then what do you do with him?
Right.
You can only bring him in when those guys need a break, and, you know, it's time for them to
Or
come
you
out.
can put him on as an outside halfback.
Right, but then that's when you have to bring the other guys out. So, right.
And I think that he plays very well as a halfback.
Right.
More than as a striker, because he has such a great motor.
Right.
And that's just personally where I would put it. So that's those two games. Now, because Man U is just in complete disarray, I have to vent a little bit here. The first thing is pink shirts for the coaches. What are they thinking about? This isn't a girls' team, no offense to the girls, but pink shirts. Come on. They're getting away from what Man U's culture is by doing something like that.
And you know what's funny is, because I was thinking that last night, you know, Man U is known as an intimidating team. Yeah. And whenever they wore those black jerseys, it's like, oh man, here comes Man U as a visiting team. And that's what you want to portray, and using those pink shirts and doing the opposite.
And the thing is, the color pink, for those of you who don't know anything, about it, Iowa Hawkeyes college football team, way back in the 70s when Hayden Fry was coaching them, he painted the entire visiting locker room pink. The entire thing, the urinals, everything is a pink color. So that when they come to Iowa and they're in there before the game and they're in there at halftime, just the color itself gets them all relaxed and quiet. And
so psychological.
Yes, and it's worked for so many years that when Kurt Ferentz took over, and Kurt Ferentz now has been there, this is his 20th year, it's still pink.
Right.
And now the good teams that come in are smart enough, they have people come in and cover it up. They cover up the walls, they cover up the urinals, because they know what it does to the team.
Right.
So pink, not a good thing. So here's my second complaint. Ed Woodward sucks as a GM. He's making lots of money for Man U, and that's great, but he knows nothing about the game. He doesn't know players. He should not be there. There has been talk about hiring a director of football, which would be in place of him, and he would be the one that would go out and sign the new players. They have to do that, because here's the thing. he hires Mourinho, right?
Right.
But then Mourinho says, I want this player A, B, C, D. He doesn't get them. And the reasoning is, well, they're not much better than the players you have. Okay, well, how do you know? You've got Mourinho, who's supposed to be one of the best coaches,
Right.
at least for the last 15 years. So why aren't you listening to him? You know?
And you know what's funny is then those are some of the things that I always talk about, how well is Mourinho really, how good is he really, because it seems like the teams where he's been successful at is because the teams were already there when he got there.
Exactly.
And one of the things that we were talking about is how he's just showing the culture of Man U.
Right.
You know, Man U is known for winning championships and
Yep.
stuff like that. And having, you know, even when you don't win a championship, you have one of the top 4 teams in the entire league.
Right.
And if that's not going to happen, is Mourinho the right man, which is what you've been saying from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know?
And so about Mourinho, here's the thing. One thing, they called him the special one. He ain't special anymore. because he is ruining our style of play. He's ruining our culture.
Right.
And I don't understand how the board doesn't see it.
Right.
When you've got the legends, Sir Alex Ferguson, who's a part of that.
Mhm.
You've got, you know, all these people that they've hired that were players, that are great players, that are around the club all the time. It's like, why aren't these people stepping up and going, you need to get him out?
Right.
He's ruining our club. So that's one thing, is I don't think he's a special one. And he's ruining our style of play. And I believe truly that when he says something like this, so after they lost to Tottenham and they did their post-game conference, a reporter asked him, do you know your best back 4? And he said no. And I'm like, you've been there for 2 years. How do you not know your best back 4 by then? I mean, we know our best back 4 before
Right.
we even start in
Right.
November, and we don't get our actual boys until we're clear of who we have until October.
Right.
And so we know this is our best back 4 if we're playing a back 4.
Right.
And we try to stick with them the whole time.
And we have to count about, you know, we have to make sure that we have different players at the beginning of the year, and any time where he's having the same the players for those 2 years.
Exactly.
And he's thinking about bringing more. Well, why do you want to bring more if you can't even handle the ones you have?
Exactly. So that's an issue. And so here's what I think. They need a manager who was a player. They need Giggs, okay, who's
Which
now...
we talked about.
Yes, who's now in charge of the Wales national team. And I don't even think they played a game yet, but still. They need somebody like Giggs or Scholes, who hasn't really done much coaching. He helped coach with Giggs when they fired Moyes, and he also did a bit on the younger side, which is also Nicky Butt, who has been coaching the younger players for a
Right.
long time. He would be great. And then you have the Neville brothers. You know, I mean, Phil is now running the women's England national team,
Right.
so he's has coaching experience. Plus, he coached before at other under other coaches. And then Gary Neville, who's now, you know, a spokesperson,
Right.
he coached at Valencia and stuff like that. So, and I'm just mentioning the class of '92 players,
Right.
but they're the ones that are still kind of involved.
Right.
And so I definitely think they need to be put in there, because let's face it, in 5 years since Fergie left, we have not challenged for first.
Right.
So how could these guys who know the culture do any worse?
Right. And we were talking about this earlier because I really thought that Giggs was being trained to take over.
We
for
all
Fergie.
did.
And I think everybody was hoping for that because you know, you're talking about probably one of the best players that Man U's had in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, and those 4 games that he coached, he did great.
Yes.
You know, it's not like he did bad.
No.
So why, you know, is it that because you want to sell tickets, that you want to get a name like Mourinho, where he's not giving you the results that you want,
Right.
you know? You want somebody who's going to give you the results, not just the name, because the name is good for so long.
Right.
Now you got to get rid of him and try to get another coach. You know, well, what if the person that's available is not what you want? It's not what
Right.
the club needs.
Yeah, and you're right. You know, and if Mourinho gets sacked, okay, Carrick, he's been there with Fergie, Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho as not only a player, but now as a coach.
Right.
So he has not only done everything that Scholes and Giggs and all them have done with Fergie, but he's done it with these other coaches. Okay,
Right.
so he has the potential where he could take over. Whether they would keep him or not, I have no idea. Because
Right.
he's not that as big a name as Zidane is, for example,
Right.
or
Right.
Giggs or Scholes or any of that.
Right. And, and like I was saying before, it's probably one of the good things about bringing Emery to the table with Arsenal, because the name is not like a Mourinho or a Zidane, so the expectations don't have to be so fast, with someone like that. And already seeing the results against, the game that he won, this is what what we were looking for, something positive in how the games that we need to win are going to happen and how they should be won. So playing the next game against Cardiff, it's going to be another game like West Ham where we have to go out there and make sure that we get a win.
Right, I agree. I agree.
And it doesn't have to be a blowout. I mean, we talked about how Liverpool has won a game just 1-0 or
Right.
something like that. So as long as we get the wins and we move up the table, Man U and Arsenal are two teams that need to be in the top four.
Yeah, there's no doubt about
There's no
that.
reason. I mean, there's history there. There's one of the reasons that when Arsenal, is not winning, league, at least we're in the champions. So we're in
Yes.
the top four and we're competing for something. So this is what the fans want, And Man U fans, I can understand their frustration because they're not happy with Mourinho. You're not happy with Mourinho for the same reasons as they are. They see that he's not the person that should be there,
Yeah.
Or if he is, he needs to do some changes.
Yep, I
Yeah.
agree. All right, thanks for joining us on our episode of Soccer Talk. We look forward to seeing you again, and hopefully you'll be able to watch both Man U and Arsenal play this upcoming weekend.
Yep. So hopefully we'll see you on our next show, and we'll be talking about a little bit more about all of that. Premier
right.
League.
Yeah, okay, well have a good one. Go Reds!
Go Arsenal. Go guys.